Welcome to the Agile Coaching Exchange. It is May 2023. It's brilliant to see so many of you. Tonight's speakers, we have Chris Stone and we have Aisling Green. Many of you will know of Chris, where he's better known on LinkedIn as the Virtual Agile Coach. Over the last couple of years, he's been providing all sorts of innovative, unusual, retrospective formats from popular culture. He's joined by Aisling Green, who is a very, very long-standing part of the Agile community as a Agile coaching consultant in the pharmaceutical industry and now in Tata Consulting Services. And we're really, really interested to hear from them tonight about what they have to say about team engagement and keeping those sessions going and keep getting people involved. So without further ado, I'd like to give Aisling and Chris a really, really warm ACE welcome. And I'll hand you over to Aisling and Chris.
Thanks very much, Ben. Appreciate that. I'll share the screen, but also Chris has put in the chat a link to our Miro board. If you can join the Miro board, that would be great. So hopefully you guys are seeing my screen. Yeah, perfect. I can see a thumbs up. That's all good. All right. So this is Chris's wonderful Agile Alchemy. He picked a word that I would find really hard to say. So tonight, intentional. I know it was intentional. So tonight, what we're going to explore is how to transform from apathy to engagement in our ceremonies. So you're all very lucky because part of what we're going to do tonight is we're going to do a little taster session from the Scrum Mastery pathway on the Agile Mastery Institute. So Chris and myself are both guides, and we thought we would bring a little bit of the Agile Mastery Institute for you guys to try out tonight as well. I'm just going to hide the collaborators because all I can see is lots of things moving about there. So just to introduce myself, which Ben did already, my name is Aisling, and yes, it does not sound how it looks. It is an Irish name. Nobody can ever say it, but that's okay. So I have been a coach, and thank you, Ben. Saying a very long time makes me feel very old. But yes, it is a very long time. I've been in the Agile community around 20 years. So yes, I do feel very old these days. You can find out a little bit more about me just from my user manual up there. I'm not going to go through it all. I am a guide on the Agile Mastery Institute and help support people in their path to mastery. And I'll just hand over to Chris to introduce himself a little bit.
Right, hey there folks. As you can see there is also a manual of me about Chris Stone. And again, I don't want to labor that too much. There's some visual materials you can browse through and learn a bit more about me. I'd rather us focus on the useful stuff, how we turn those boring ceremonies into ones that are a bit more engaging through a bit of Agile Alchemy with a sprinkle of gold dust and creativity. Few things you should know about me is that I love adventures in foreign lands, and that's exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm in Portland, Oregon, in a hotel room where I was the oldest thing in the room because everything is new here. And I love disrupting things. I love creating things. I'm a podcast host, a trainer, a speaker, all manner of things. Anyway, let's dive into the cool stuff. So, Aisling, you're going to talk us through what we're going to achieve today.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Okay, so our outcomes for this session is to explore some techniques to help unlock creativity and the key ingredient we think for your magic potions that we're going to use later. And then we want to practice creating your own recipes for these magic potions to help transform your apathy to engagement in your ceremonies. All right. So that's what we hope to get out of our session today. We will hope that you guys all interact with us. Otherwise, this will be very boring and very short. So hopefully you're all on the Miro board and able to interact and with us as we go through. So to get us started, we just wanted to do a little check-in. So what is your view on the statement, creativity is something that you're either born with or not? So you either have it or you don't. So if you agree with that statement, put your cute little sticky avatar to the agree. If you disagree, put it down to the disagree. If you're somewhere in the middle, stick it somewhere in the middle. That's fine. Okay, we're getting a good spread already. All right, and as you get that, we'll have a little check-in to see how we're getting on with it. If you've already put your cute little sticky note up there, if you want to start filling in the post-it notes below about what does creativity mean to you, so that might help give us a little bit of context on it. So just down below, there's some post-it notes. Just grab one. Yeah, I can see people are already doing that. Great stuff. And just put on the post-it note, what does creativity mean to you? You can fill as many as you want then.
And if you prefer doing so, feel free to type inside the Zoom chat or speak aloud if you're feeling brave. You can interact with us however you feel comfortable doing so.
Great stuff. Yeah, Chris is monitoring the chat because I can't see the chat when I'm sharing my screen. So hopefully he's monitoring the chat there for me too.
I'm on it.
Good man. All right, great stuff. All right, so we had a good spread of people from disagree to agree. So some people think, yeah, you're not either born with it or not. And some people are going, yeah, well, you're born with it or not. So that's pretty good. Is anybody brave enough to tell me why they think you're born with it or not? They come off mute. I don't know, can people unmute themselves okay here?
Yeah, I don't think one is born with creativity. I think that's there are different factors influencing whether one has creative moments or capacities, and I think they can be trained.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you very much, Sven. Yeah.
Okay, Sven, I'll contradict. I think creativity comes from the way you are brought up to a large extent. I think it comes from, if I'm going to be a bit deep, I think it comes from being a bit bored when you were young. Because when you are bored, you have to kind of use your mind to figure things out and come up with ideas. And it sort of inspires a way of thinking what isn't naturally in front of you. You're kind of becoming creative, imaginative, and you develop a sense of seeing things differently from whatever the process that you otherwise would be in, what that would dictate to you. I think it's natural for some. You can probably train this skill of being creative, but I think it comes much more natural to some people than it does for others. And therefore, I think there's some nature in there, and more so than nurture, if I'm going to be saying what I think.
Great. Thank you, Thomas, for sharing that. Yeah, that's an interesting perspective, is, some people do have that capacity when they're born. Actually, there's a lot of people who have that capacity when they're born to be creative. I was listening to somebody actually talk on this, and they were saying a lot of our schooling actually takes it out of us because we're told to conform, we're told to follow the one best practice. So, when you watch children at play, it's really interesting because you see them invent little games. I had a whole imaginary friend. There you go, Ben. That's my most embarrassing secret. But I did have an imaginary friend when I was a child, so I had a very creative imagination to keep me going.
I've still got an imaginary friend. Don't judge.
Still got it. Okay.
Lucifer sits on my shoulder here. He tells me to do bad things. And I've got a good version on the other side. They're little voices, but they're good ones. They help me.
Yeah. No. So there is definitely something in that. Whenever we're younger, we do tend to have a lot of time we do see that creativity in children. We have that creativity. As we get older, sometimes it does get taken out of us as we go through the education system, especially, or that people are telling us to conform. Okay, so a few other things just to pick up on. Creativity's fun, trying things, being open-minded, having no limits, taking chances. Okay, so there's lots of good things there. Great.
Can I share something for me? It's a lot about personality and a lot about the not just openness, however, with the own curiosity and the own space that somebody had from childhood on, and how confident people are and how support they get, how much recognition people also get for something to actually contribute, to have their voice heard.
Yeah, so they can get reinforced in the creativity. So we're going to maybe give you that space today to try it out as we go through. Because, creating that right space for creativity, or creating that right environment, I think, as some people have mentioned, because whenever your mind's overloaded and you're extremely busy, it's really hard to be creative. I know for myself, my most creative is the morning, which my manual of me says, because my head is less full of all the stuff I have to do all day. So it's always interesting. Okay, so we have to get a lot through, and I'm going to go on to Chris. So I'll hand over to yourself for this.
All right, so there have been some excellent insights, folks, and some divergent responses there. We've alluded to the notion that children are very creative, and there's a great quote from Pablo Picasso here about all children are artists. The problem is remaining an artist once we grow up. So we begin with this creative mind, this creative capacity, and then over time we begin to lose that creative capacity because we begin being burdened by our experiences, what we've tried and failed with. We begin fitting inside certain boxes that school and society puts us in. There was a great visual I saw recently. I wish I'd put it up on here. And it showed someone saying, oh, let's escape the box. Let's think outside the box. And the visual showed them thinking outside the box, and they got out of the box, and then they were just inside another larger box. And that can be a bit what it feels like, right? You get out of one box and then you're presented with another one, and creativity can help you escape those. Now, there was an experiment done back in the 60s by George Land and Beth Yarman. And what they did is they were designing an experiment that aims to look at how creative and innovative NASA engineers and scientists were. And what they did is they asked 1,600 children to perform on this test and see how many uses they could come up with for paper clips. So it was all about paperclip creativity. And at that age, 98% of those children were technically geniuses by virtue of that test, based on how many ideas they had, the volume of ideas. And what they then did is they retested those children at ages 10 and 15, and they also did a test on adults as well. And my question for you is, how do you think the children compared to the adults? If 98% of them were considered geniuses, how many adults and children of the age of 10, 15 do you think would be considered geniuses? What do we think, folks? Share aloud, type in the chat, let me know. What do you think?
Definitely not as many.
All right, not as many?
I'd say your teenage brain, something weird goes on and you don't really know what you're doing and where you are. And adults, I think we've, like you've said, have become, put into a box and are a bit afraid to step outside of the norm.
Okay, so lots of interesting responses in the chat.
You learn how these things don't work, and so you don't try to implement ideas that you have in your mind that will never work. So you never try certain things that children will try just because nobody ever told them not to.
So as a child, you see possibilities. As an adult, you maybe see limitations, or I can't do this because you've got a limiting belief there that tells you don't do that. Something bad will happen, or I've experienced something similar and therefore I believe it will go in that direction. Your knowledge starts to hamper your ability to be creative. I'm seeing some.
I also think as an adult, sometimes your risk-taking abilities reduces, especially when you start thinking about family. You are less creative in taking risk, and as a child, you live a free life. And so for that reason, you tend to think you can do anything. You have no limitation, basically.
If anyone has seen children skiing down the side of a mountain with reckless abandon, it's because they've not experienced pain before and they just bounce when they do fall over. Whereas adults will go a bit slower. They are burdened by their experience and that fear of pain, as children just go for it. And I'm so envious. Anyway, so there's lots of interesting responses in the chat here. I'm seeing ranges from adults at less than 10% or 10 to 20% or 0 or less than 50, a range. Let's find out how they actually did. So there we go. At age 5, 98% of children were considered to be geniuses by virtue of this test. At age 10, that drops to 30%. At 15, that drops to 12%, and adults just 2%. So we definitely lose our creativity as we age, but that doesn't mean you can't regain it. I did not begin a creative person by my own standards. When I was in school and I was in art class and things like that, I didn't consider myself very creative. And in fact, I've gained creativity through intent and through practice. And we're going to help you understand some options, some approaches that you can use to regain some of that creativity. So how this is going to work. You are going to choose from one of these 4 objects below. There is a metal water container. There is a necktie. there is a comb, and there is a wooden spoon. Choose one of those objects, okay? When you have chosen, click on the Miro boards, the icon, you can see it's being highlighted there, and that will take you to an area where there's lots of post-it notes where you can begin coming up with ideas, okay? We're going to do this as one large group, so don't worry, you can do this as one large group. Essentially, choose your objects, navigate to your area, and then you're going to be given 3 minutes to come up with as many ideas, alternative uses for that object as possible. So if it's a wooden spoon, obviously we know a wooden spoon is used for stirring. Think of as many ways you could use that wooden spoon that isn't related to stirring. And the same applies for a comb, a necktie, and a water cantina. 3 minutes. This first round is all about not judging the quality of the idea. Don't focus on that. It's purely the volume of ideas, as many as you can think of. And let's see what happens. Timer is starting now. Go. Well, I get the benefit of being able to zoom out and see everyone's options, everyone's answers. There we go. I can see there's a bunch of people working on the spoon. Some people working on the tie. Don't worry about looking into these yet. We're going to do that afterwards. And in a few minutes, we're going to introduce a new variable, a new thing to think about. I love seeing the answers people come up with these things that I would never even think about.
Yeah, so as Chris says, don't filter. Just put down whatever you can think of, even if it sounds completely off the wall. That's perfectly fine.
And Tanya needs to drop, has asked someone to make a lever for her. I'm guessing that's relating to the wooden spoon. All right, just under 2 minutes left. We've got loads of ideas coming in. If you need more post-it notes, folks, then you can just Control-C and Control-V to create more. I will also create a bunch of them below where we are now as spares if we need them. More are appearing above and below your boards. In fact, what we're going to do is, because we're rattling through this so quickly, I'm going to cut it down. We're going to do this, so 30 seconds left, and then we're going to move on to the new variable.
A very creative bunch. We're coming up with loads there.
Loads of ideas are coming in. "15 seconds left, and then we're going to change it up. Be ready, folks. All right, 3, 2, 1. So technique 1 was about delaying judgment, just going with it. Technique 2, now think of a psychopathic mindset and add some alternative uses. Get crazy with it. Use these objects for malintent, for bad purposes, and add as many new things as you can think of.
Slightly worried by how fast they're going.
Well, interestingly, this one is it's often quite easy. It's a form of reverse brainstorming where you make something worse before you make it better. And we humans have a negativity bias, and therefore it's sometimes easier to see a way of making it worse than better. So it doesn't surprise me. I did have a group once where I introduced this new variable, and a breakout room was full of a group of ladies, and they said, "Chris, you know, we're women. We started that psychopathic mindset right from the beginning," and I laughed. They'd already been doing it.
That actually came up on a call I had today, where a lady said her child asked her why so many women weren't psychopaths, and she said, "We just get away with it more."
All right, lots of nefarious means appearing. We've got a brain whacker. I'm not going to say where that's come from. To hide a bomb. Okay, it's pretty nefarious. A garrote. A couple of people saying that. Lovely.
Blood storage. That's an interesting one.
Blood storage. I've never had that one before.
Yeah.
The thing is, that's not necessarily bad. That's that could be for good intent. You might be transporting something to help someone. I'm just seeing the optimism. Right, another 20 seconds and we're going to go into a new variable, folks. 20 seconds. Keep those ideas flowing. All right, 3, 2, 1. Your next option. Now let's adopt a childish or immature mindset. Think of as many new uses with a childish mindset. Imagine you were a child and you were using one of these objects for something fun and playful. As many new uses as you can think of. Go.
I like the emergency wee for the bottle.
The emergency wee. Okay, yeah. If you've been traveling for a long time and you're stuck in a car and there is not a bathroom in sight,
when you gotta go, you gotta go.
If you gotta go, you gotta go. Call of nature.
Catapult. Ooh.
A catapult. Ooh, where's that? Where was that?
On the tie there.
Wrapping ribbons. An explosive fuse. Wow, yeah, nice. The wooden spoon foot massager, of course. Who's able to clean their nose with that wooden spoon? They must have very wide nostrils.
Depends which end of the spoon you're using, I guess.
True. All right, 40 seconds, and we're going to go into our final variable. And if we were competing right now, not that it's a competition, if we were competing, the Jedi Temple, which is where the wooden spoon folks are, they are leading by a pure volume of ideas. That could be because they have more people. Could be maybe they're more creative. Who knows? We haven't made it so that everyone's even in terms of team size. All right, last 13 seconds then.
Some great stuff up there.
Here we go. Your final one is you're going to look at these new objects and using them as inspiration, identify further uses for your objects. So what you'll be maybe aware of is that a lot of modern innovation these days isn't brand new things. It's the combination of ideas to create new purposes. So in the middle of your screen, I'll show you right here, you can see new objects. We've got a magnifying glass, some pens, a ball of wool, a shoe, and a wrench. Using those objects as inspiration, combine them with your original objects, your wooden spoon, necktie, container, and comb, and come up with as many new uses as you can think of. And this is our final round. And then we're going to see some of the interesting things that we've come up with in this exercise. I have a strong urge to play tug of war now with the necktie, just to see what happens.
I quite like the idea of using it as a snake.
Yeah.
Very imaginative. Especially my brother-in-law who's afraid of them. Terrified of snakes.
All right, final minute. Let's see how many new ideas we can come up with. Have you got a favorite so far, Ashley?
Ooh, that's tough. Garrot.
Garrot.
Is that
Lovely.
saying something about me?
Maybe. No judgment. It's fine. This is part of the exercise. Last 15 seconds.
No, I've just found something I like more. Dressing up the spoon.
Dressing up the spoon as what? I suppose there's
Mr. Spoon from Button Moon.
Mr. Spoon from Button Moon.
Oh,
I was going to go with no, I was going to go with Toy Story, where they had like a fork that had a face.
Sparky.
There we go. That little guy.
Yeah.
All
Button
right.
Moon's for the older people in the audience like me.
So we've just been through various rounds of creating new things, alternative uses for common objects. In the first round, we went just for pure volume, no judgments. So just quantity, this is delaying judgment. The second technique we used was reverse brainstorming, or making something negative first, because we have this negative bias, a negativity bias, and therefore it's easier to make things worse. And you can use this with teams you work with as well. You could say, hey, how could we make our team or reduce our team's morale? How could we make our product worse so they wouldn't want to buy it? And you can then sometimes work backwards and find out ways forwards. The third option, we said, let's be childish and immature. And again, that unlocked some new ideas. And the last one we repurposed. We used combinations of existing ideas to come up with new ways of doing things, new alternative uses. So 4 different exercises there to demonstrate different ways of creating things. Let's debrief. Over to Ashlyn.
Yeah, so as Chris mentioned, the whole idea here is just to try to get you to take different perspectives, to think things differently, and just to generate as much volume as we possibly can to unleash that creativity. So just want to see, is there any ones that people want to pick out for? Which one do you think was the funniest one that you came up with, or that you see on the board that someone else has come up with? Anybody want to share?
Well, I think for the bottle, a finger glove wouldn't be very practical, but I think look a bit silly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Anybody, anything else that they think was very funny that they came up with?
I like corner sharing for the bottle.
Which one?
Corona sharing. It's there somewhere.
Corona shares and sharing right. Corona. Sharing Corona.
Okay.
All right.
Very good.
I would also add sharing COVID also works.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking, is that Corona the beer they were talking about?
Yeah, that's where my mind went to.
Yeah. Eye cover for the tie. I think that's quite funny. Any other ones people could pick out that were quite funny?
I liked mouse house for the bottle.
Mouse house.
Class. Very funny.
Nice.
Yeah. And for the
mouse house.
For the comb, I loved the moustache for a teddy bear. So that was great. Whoever came up with that. That was very inventive. Fantastic. What would you have never thought of? So if anybody wants to share something that they came up with that they never would have thought of, or maybe it was their most creative one that they thought of. Anybody want to share anything that came up there?
I didn't think that my mind would have presented me with using a comb to block the water intake for coolant for a nuclear power plant.
Wow.
I think that is something that I wouldn't have predicted.
That's very specific. We could have used that sort of creativity during the Chernobyl disaster.
Yeah, that is very creative and completely out there. Yeah, fantastic. So as we can see, just from doing it, for thinking about these things from different perspectives, it helps us just to generate lots more different ideas. So if we're doing this in a design session, a design thinking session, or maybe we're doing this as a way in our retrospectives to try to help us improve things, we can definitely use these techniques to help us explore that further. Did anybody come up with any new ideas when Chris introduced the objects at the end? Did anybody come up with any ideas that they'd like to share?
I did. So for the bottle, I'd seen the rubber band ball and immediately thought if you had a bottle and the ball, bunch of kids playing, you probably use the bottle as maybe like a rounders bat, baseball bat, and play some rounders.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's great. Great, fantastic. Go ahead. I think with someone else coming in there.
For the comb, you could attach the markers to the comb and make it like a rainbow colorer. You know what I mean? Like you'd paint it along.
Brilliant. Another great idea. So again, you know, even introducing those different types of objects can bring in a different level of creativity there, a different level of thinking as we're going through it. So thank you so much, guys, for sharing your creativity with us all. As we can see, there's lots there that you guys who said maybe we weren't so creative can see that we explored or unlocked a lot of creativity. So Chris is going to talk a little bit about how we can use that creativity.
Yes, so we've highlighted, we had that initial discussion about is creativity something born or is it made over time? And we've shown you some examples of how you can use different creative techniques to come up with new ideas. And why is that important? Well, let's just reflect a moment. How much of our week do we spend in meetings? Is it 100% on the right-hand side of the scale? Is it 0% or is it somewhere in the middle? You can share your individual perspective by moving one of these little icons to represent on the scale. Okay, so we're erring closer to 75% here than we are 0%. So that's a lot of time inside the box that is created, a time box of sorts for meetings. I personally get my best ideas when I'm out for a walk, not when I'm stuck inside the meeting vacuum where people say, oh, just innovate and create stuff right now. Sometimes isn't how it best works. All right, now think about the best meeting you've ever ever involved in, and what made it so? What was particularly amazing about that meeting? Share your thoughts on these post-it notes here. So we've got the energy. We've got fun. We enjoyed it. Yeah. It was fun and also productive. It was focused. It was productive fun. There's a lot of fun themes coming in here. It was interactive. We were clear on the outcome. We collaborated. There was good questions. We learned something new. Yeah, a meeting is essentially a feedback loop, enabling you to learn and alter your trajectory accordingly based on what you learn. It was judgment-free, so we could contribute safely. We had the right people in the room, so we could make decisions. We had everyone participating equally, so one single person wasn't dominating the conversation. We had a variety of people. Nice. Okay. There's some really interesting insights here. I fundamentally believe that we spend so many of our living years in the workplace, and we spend so many of our waking hours in the workplace that we owe it to ourselves to enjoy the process. And we've seen there just a few snippets. People were saying that the best meetings they were involved with were things they were enjoying. They were fun, they had good energy, they had good vibes. Research backs this up too. So happier employees are more productive. So 37% more productive than less happy employees. So if we end up in these meetings that are stale and repetitive and boring and disengaging, that breeds apathy, it breeds frustration. You may be less likely to want to be involved in the next meeting as a consequence. Think of some of the really common agile ceremonies we're involved with on a daily basis. I would say the daily sync, probably the most widely used agile, or not even just agile meeting, but a daily sync of some kind, probably the most widely used meeting in the world today. And so often it's a stale, repetitive status report style meeting that asks the 3 questions and doesn't really help people. So what we love to do in these exercises, we like to allow the audience to choose their focus. And what we'd like to do here is just gauge from you, which of these meetings do you believe is suffering from the most apathy? votes with these little post-it dudes, and then we are going to collectively use our newfound creative skills to see what we can do to improve that, to make it more engaging, to mix up a magical potion, to use some alchemy and see what we can do to create a better version of that meeting that people look forward to a bit more. So get your votes in, and we will head down the direction of the one that gets the most votes. Go into a live session where we practice doing this. Fairly even so far. We've got 5 or so in the retro, 5 in the sync, 6 in backward refinement, I think, so far. Slightly winning.
How many votes, Chris, each?
Tell you what, we'll make it 2 votes each. We've gone with 1 vote so far. Do a second vote. Good question, should have clarified. And whilst that's happening, someone asked me a question. Someone asked the question: how often do you leave the meeting when it's boring? I think not enough people do. I long for a situation where it's just socially acceptable for someone to be able to say, do you know what, this meeting isn't adding value, and I'm going to leave right now, rather than just sitting there politely not getting value, or indeed being distracted by other things and actually not being an active participant.
Yeah, that doesn't work when you're facilitating, though.
Yeah, well then it's on you to make sure it's an engaging session, right?
Yep.
All right, I think the winner is backlog refinement. So let's delve into backlog refinement. Okay, you folks have chosen that as our ceremony. Let's create. Let's come up with things. Add your thoughts on the post-it notes. Copy and paste from Google if you wish. Let's get weird with it. Let's see how we can energize and make backlog refinement a more powerful, valuable, engaging ceremony for those involved. Let's remove some of that dread from that backlog refinement. You folks voted it for a reason. You've recognized there's a challenge with it. You should be here. And this is a part where you can just talk amongst yourselves, speak aloud. You have to do this in silence. Let's do it. Let's see what we can create.
Yeah, don't be afraid to use some of the creativity you came up with in the last session, like even to unlock some of your thinking. Like, how could you use some of the techniques you thought of before? Maybe not the psychopathic ones, but how could you use some of the techniques or the tools that we discussed before?
It's hard to make this concise, but having people describe a particular story that you're going to look at, like a movie trailer.
Oh,
yeah, there we go. Movie trailer story. So what would this story be if it was a movie trailer?
Yeah.
Actually,
or other challenges like that.
Like you can imagine reading a story. What's the absolute worst way you can implement this that will still answer the criteria? You can use that as a counterexample.
Yeah, that could help you come up with some negative cases as well, or some things you hadn't thought of before to explore. That's a great idea. So how good we do this in the worst way? Any other ideas people have? There's lots coming in.
Silly prize for the best idea. Start with a quiz. So, okay, so someone's put in here, take intermittent fun breaks. What's a fun break? Tell me more. I'm intrigued.
No.
Okay.
What's the remove everything you don't want anti-pattern? What does that one mean if someone's willing to share? It sounds pretty cool. Nope.
What it reminds me of is I love a concept called kill the backlog, where your aim is to remove things from the backlog and not add it, and justify why. And you might just say, for example, you jump in a backlog refinement session and you've got a revolver, 6 bullets, kill 6 things, or at least refine them further to the point that they're more valuable, more useful, more engaging, something we're going to enjoy more.
Yes, great idea.
Project Thanos, yeah. What can we click and remove half of? It's always so amusing when these backlogs end up these bloated lists of hundreds and hundred things in a place where hopes and dreams go to die. I love the idea of just saying, right, after 2 weeks, everything older than 6 months disappears. Click of a finger, Project Thanos, gone. No unfairness, no biases. Just if it's old, we get rid of it. Because if it was old, it probably isn't. If it's not been updated for a while, odds are it's not the most valuable thing to be working on right now.
Delete it and see who complains.
Yeah, you wait till they complain first. Because if it was that important and it's been deleted, then they'll complain. Okay, we'll re-add it. It's fine. But clearly, it wasn't that important because you haven't talked about it for a long time. Explain the story as if you're a 5-year-old. So what's this? Eli 5, Eli 5. Explain it like I'm 5. Eli 5 it.
I see someone's put up gamification there. Do they want to talk a little bit about that? Like, what kind of games could we use in the backlog refinement session?
Sometimes I like to play roles with them, for example, when they're explaining stories and estimating, and then I switch the estimation and they have to defend each other's estimation, for example.
Nice, a bit of role play in there.
Yes, for example, yeah.
Great idea.
You can definitely use like a point system and say, right, successfully refining a story is this number of points, removing something is this number of points. You could kind of add a point system to certain activities within a refinement, and then use that as a way of like, we've scored this amount of points in this refinement session. Good work.
Or anybody that removes something gets a big point. Yeah, definitely.
What's the worst that can happen? Yeah, what's the worst that can happen is the reverse brainstorming idea of doing things. Asking the question, what would happen if we remove this first? Yeah, would it be the end of the world?
Mm-hmm.
Got some memes in there. Love that Dr. Evil one. Ask for estimates and treat them as deadlines. Brutal, but so often happens.
You're welcome.
How could we use that to help improve how could we flip the switch on that one to help improve our backlog refinements?
Sneak Austin Powers quotes into every story.
Yeah, we could.
I used people will tell you not to use estimates.
Yeah, don't do estimates at all. If backlog refinement is a source of frustration and energy because people are estimating things that then holds deadlines, don't use estimates. Radical, right?
Cool. All right. Anybody want to talk about any of the other ideas they put up there? Oh, I like that. What if the funding ends next sprint?
Great question.
That's a really powerful question.
There's a technique that relates to that. Like, there's aliens are going to come down and destroy everybody on Earth unless we get this done, in the next month. What do we pick to choose to make it happen?
Yeah, we create a sense of dread. If the team was to disappear in the next few weeks, what is the one thing we have to get completed by then? What if it was Independence Day style and aliens were going to destroy the White House or our team? Exactly. What should we absolutely complete by then? Some good questions.
Great. Yeah. Bring in a guest speaker. Oh, who would like to talk about that one? It's quite interesting. Anybody want to share what they were thinking there? What kind of guests could we bring in? Imagine we actually brought in customers. Wow.
Yes. Citizen developers. Bring in a live customer into a refinement session. Prioritize with them.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't my suggestion here, but I think it resonates with the anchor to the actual customer pain. So to actually to give it relevance and meaning, right? One way is to gamify this more superficial enjoyment factor, and the other one is create more meaning to the actual activity. Like it.
Yeah. So about that empathy with the customer, is that what you're thinking? Empathy with actually the problems we're trying to solve.
That's right. It's not just another thing that we need to, pump out. It's just something that makes a difference.
Yeah, it's a great way to think about it, because as you said, we often talk about the backlog and people talk about the list. It's not just the list. We're doing these things for a reason. So trying to make that connection about that, even using that as a technique as well. So what is the connection? Like, what do we want people to feel when they use that? I think that's a great idea of trying to make that connection between it. Great.
I guarantee there are not many. What was that? Someone from the help desk? Oh, I love that. Love that. Someone who actually gets feels the pain on a daily basis from the customers using the products.
Yeah, I'm working in a company at the minute, and a lot of the product owners come from the help desk, which is great because they tell you where the pain's coming from. You can actually feel it. No, fantastic. Thank you, folks. Lots of great ideas. Hopefully it'll give some people some things that they can try as they go through and try to move their product backlog refinement from apathy to engaging. All right, Chris, I'll hand you back to do the roundup.
To summarize things up, to close things out. So we've demonstrated here, I'm going to bring everyone's attention to this point. We've demonstrated here some of the attributes of being alternative, which is one of the modules within the Scrum Mastery pathway. One of the competencies we believe that Agile professionals should have, the ability to be alternative, to help their teams, not just as a Scrum Master, but to help their teams be innovative, to bring about divergent thinking, to drive creativity and innovation, and avoid the mechanical application of Agile ceremonies, because that's what it can feel like. You've got your daily syncs, you've got your retros, you've got all these meetings which serve as a bit of a cadence, a rhythm, a heartbeat, but because they're a rhythm, they can become rhythmic and they can become repetitive and stale, and we don't want to be mechanically applying Agile. We want to do so in a way that helps people and enjoy the process at the same time. So we've alluded to various techniques. We've alluded to the fact that you can develop that creativity. It is a skill that takes practice, and I encourage you to go away and practice this further. Think about some real Agile ceremonies that you're working with on a day-to-day basis, and challenge yourself to come up with some different ways of energizing those. You've practiced some examples of how to do that in this past day. Go away and give that a go. Practice that, foster that creativity, and then help others do the same. As an Agile person who works with teams, you're not just trying to create an environment where you are creative, but where they can be creative too, where they can diverge and converge and innovate and come up with cool things for the customers and the people that they work with. Okay, so there's many ways of doing this, and you've seen some of the examples. We've seen reverse brainstorming, we've seen being silly, we've shown being psychotic, we've alluded to using movies and television and video games and all manner of things that people enjoy, and harnessing that in the workplace too, because the workplace can be fun with a bit of creativity. Firm believer in this. Thank you for those that have shared various thoughts and insights, either via the mirror board, via the Zoom chat, or out loud. I can see Mike's just shared an interesting link about creativity at work and how it can be taught, so do take a look at that. Folks, and it wouldn't be, I guess, a good representation of someone who is creative without using a creative way of capturing your feedback. So if you navigate your way a little bit to the right, you can see a football-themed feedback loop, a return on time invested loop. Now, if you felt this was a good use of your time, then type inside one of these little footballs with some comments and place that football inside the goal to represent a goal was scored. If it was a bad use of your time, or you didn't get much value from the session, then the ball should be placed outside of the goal or at the keeper to represent the fact that the keeper saved it. Any and all feedback is welcome. It will help us to improve these sessions. So we do these to be helpful, and it's all welcome. We have thick skin, don't worry. So do let us know. And then we also have a special offer. So anyone interested in learning more about the Scrum Mastery pathway and the Agile Mastery Institute, I have a cohorts upcoming, a 6-month cohorts starting in June. So the first 3 people to message me about that will get an exclusive discount for that upcoming cohorts. Do take a moment to add your thoughts, your feedback on these little footballs. The football theme is just because it's the end of the Premier League season and it's fresh of mind, and I'm still very disappointed that Arsenal have messed it up and aren't going to win the league.
I am not disappointed because I am a Spurs fan.
Well, unfortunately, your opinion is largely irrelevant because Spurs are awful this season.
Spurs are awful every season. We're used to it.
True story. True story.
We're a definite case of grit. So showing grit, we keep going, even though we never win.
I love that there's like a verb that's been created now. You've just spursed it. You've spursed it up based on
that's only
how things have gone.
Me and Chris are going to have a fight here on this, people.
It's all in good nature. Don't worry, folks.
Yeah. So, does anybody have any questions or anything that they want to bring up before we close out? We've got a few minutes.
Yeah, I've got a burning question to Chris.
Yeah, go for it.
Did you draw yourself?
No, I wish I had. I do believe I'm creative. My artistic skills need a lot of work. There's a great gent called Steve Sampson Jones who very kindly visualized a lot of my work, and including this little bearded dude here. That's cartoon Chris that I use in a lot of my my visuals. Steve Sampson Jones, great artist. He's also guided my manual of me. And for the person asking about Dragon Balls, I didn't choose Dragon Balls. I did choose to have a Pokemon thing in there because I love Pokemon. But it was just more of a way of showing that I'm somebody bursts of energy. That's how I work. I do a couple of hours of intense energy and then I need a long break and then I come back to it. And that's how my personal working style is. I can't just sit at a desk for 8 hours a day, otherwise I go crazy. And I start being very unproductive.
Any other questions anybody has? And thanks, folks, for putting all the feedback in. It's really appreciated.
Yeah, some good insights. Engaging session, lots of techniques. Love what's the worst thing you can do? Engaging in fun. Good use of Miro. Like the brainstorming techniques. Like the structure. And the one thing, or the major bit of feedback, we wish the audience was more vocal. So we will aspire to create an environment where people can feel more safe to speak out. Mr. Mike Levins, you have your hand up.
Yes, I'm curious. A lot of the time, a lot of what you've explained is the ability for Scrum Masters and Agile coaches to create an environment that allows for creativity and self-expression.
Mm-hmm.
How important is that compared to encouraging teams to take on that mantle for themselves? So, in other words, if the Scrum Master then is no longer around or in those meetings, that you've created and inspired your team to be creative themselves, that often allows them to do their own retrospectives on their own themes and take ownership of a lot of that responsibility for themselves. And rather than one person trying to solve a problem, you then have a whole team trying to solve a problem.
Absolutely. So this is something that echoed both by myself and the Agile Master Institute, and in particular the Scrum Mastery Pathway, because we believe there are 2 major principles of a good Scrum Master, and one is making themselves redundant, which is what you're alluding to there. Removing themselves from the equation, not being the bottleneck for creativity, but creating an environment where everyone can be creative. Creating an environment where you're not only listening to your team, but the team listens to each other, all of these things. So everything I do is all about that, trying to create that environment, remove myself from the equation so I'm no longer needed anymore. And the way I build retros, the way I build creative sessions, it's all about creating that environment where people feel safe to be part of that, and then also take that upon themselves. So if for any reason I can't be there, it's still an inbuilt skill, because I believe continuous improvement is a team sport. It's not a thing that a Scrum Master or an Agile coach brings about. It's a team sport. I believe creativity and inclusivity is a team sport. You create an environment where everyone includes each other, rather than you being the person say, oh, this person hasn't spoken for a while. I want to create an environment where the other person in the team is recognized, oh, Jim hasn't spoken for a while. Let's hear from him. So it's absolutely fundamental to everything I do, and it's very much what the Agile Mastery Institute supports. Remove yourself from the equation.
So leadership rather than control.
Absolutely.
I think the way that we would sort of describe it is the difference between being good and being great. You know, so when we're good, we're creating that environment for others. When we're great, we're enabling others to create that environment for themselves. So I don't know if anybody's read the Scrum Mastery book or the Product Mastery or the Team Mastery. We focus on what's good and what's great, you know, so it's to try to move that needle to mastery rather than just going, yeah, everything's great as long as we're here. That's definitely not what we're looking for. We're looking to create that environment where the team can be a great team. So.
Yeah, and I would say that the path there is very much a shuhari thing, in my opinion. So, you know, you start off by showing your team, but eventually you want the team to take ownership and management of these things. So I agree with everything you guys, all of you guys said.
Thank you, Mike. That was a great question.